What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Success After Trauma, where we bring in special guests with their own story. They go over the challenges they faced, what it was like, that aha moment when they realized that, hey, I'm not doing this no more. I need to do something different. And what was that journey of healing and growth for them, and how are they giving back today? Today's special guest is Andi Clark. Andi is a burnout. She is a coach and a specialist helping people work with deep burnout. We all know as entrepreneurs, especially those self-starting influential entrepreneurs, if you're online, if you are the brand, you always have to be on. And because you always have to be on, that means you're either going to hire a coach to help intervene before burnout happens, or you're going to meet with burnout. And Andi has specialized in burnout for the last 30 years as a coach, helping first responders and parents, because she has her own story about how she guides her kids that I think is very unique. And I actually asked her if she could share a little bit about it today. Andi, thank you for being on with us today. Would you share just maybe a little recap, who you are, what got you started on your journey of serving others?
Yeah. So as you said, I have been coaching for almost 30 years now. And early in my career, I was personal training, nutrition coach, doing all the things, the health, all the stuff that people say that you need to be doing. And I hit burnout. I was training for a fitness competition, which was not my finest. It was not my calling, but I was overtraining, under eating, doing all these things. And I hit a huge burnout crash in my early 20s. I stopped and I pulled out everything, always doing courses and training and learning and trying to figure out why the heck I couldn't work out anymore. Like I couldn't push weights. I was exhausted going to the gym. I would try and I kept getting injuries. My moods were all over the place. I started distancing myself from people. I was thoroughly exhausted all the time. And I'd go to my doctor and they'd be like, either you look fine, because I still looked fit, but I didn't feel good. And all of these tools that were supposed to be helping me get out of burnout weren't. I was eventually going to specialists, like gut specialists for gut issues. Every time I went to my doctor, they treated me for a different symptom separately. So I'd go for gut. My hormones were completely off. Major moods. I ended up getting sick all the time, to the point where I cracked a rib from coughing. And so I was getting x-rays for that. I'm like, what the heck? And they everything came back normal all the time. So it got to the point where I'd almost just given up and figured this is my life. I still tried to play some sports because this is who I was. I'm this active, healthy person, but it was always hard. And I was faking it with my clients. And it was just such a struggle. Some of my clients, though, I could see were struggling the way I did, and they eventually dropped off. And others were able to really keep excelling. And I was like, what the heck is this difference? I didn't know. And then when I had my second child, I was 39 when I was pregnant with him. And that's when I had my second huge burnout crash. And so I was, while pregnant with him, full on burnout crash with another. They're 19 months apart. So he was 10 months old when I first got pregnant. And so I had this little one that I was struggling to make it through. And it was, then he was born with burnout symptoms. He was born with gut issues. He had the worst case of eczema our doctor had ever seen. He had moods. When he got a little bit older, we would get it was rage. It wasn't even just little tantrums. This was rage and then into sadness. And when he could speak, he'd be in my arms saying Mommy, I'm so sad. I'm like, okay, this isn't right. Right. And I was like, this isn't happening. He is having similar symptoms to mine, slightly different. I'm like, there's no way this is in my head. So I started researching and planning and doing all kinds of things and being like, what the heck? Eventually I listened to a podcast that listed all my symptoms.
I'm so sorry. I bet in that moment you were like, what? What was that like?
I remember crying and thinking, holy crap, this isn't in my head. I'm not crazy. this is real. What's going on with him and what's going on with me is real. And so I started diving deep into that and working with different practitioners and going back to my doctor. And I mean, those are all stories in itself. There was good, there bad. There was a lot of muck. And what I learned through all of this in getting both of us out was that our medical system is triage reactive medicine, which we need. We need them. Working with EMS, like that's what EMS does, is triage reactive medicine. When you're in the ER, that's triage reactive medicine. When you're going, like, you need their skills. But the thing is I wasn't at that state, which is why all of our results were coming back as normal, because we were in that preventative state where we needed a different style of intervention, which was the holistic side. And then figuring out a lot of my behaviors, like with my first pregnancy, answering emails after the when I'm like in labor in the hospital bed, I'm sitting here still replying to emails. 2 weeks later, I'm doing payroll, all that stuff, because you run your business. This is what you do. This is who you are. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop even when you're having a baby. So like literally in labor. So these are just things we do, but I had to learn, you know what, this isn't how it has to be done. This is how I can work things for myself. This is how I can help my son as well, who is a 2E child. So he is absolutely gifted, but what he takes in a day, he doesn't have the intellectual or emotional capabilities to take in. His nervous system is also heightened, and he has a dual diagnosis when they're 2E. So he has a learning disability as well, on top of being highly gifted, which comes with so much as well. So with dealing with all that, trying to figure out, how do I manage his stressors? How do I manage mine? And getting us both on track was a journey. And then, yeah, from there, I swore that I wouldn't let anybody go. So many years. It was over 20 years. Well, it was way more than that, if I'm really being realistic. Like 39, we're going like 18 years where I was getting doctors telling me everything's okay, and it wasn't, until I figured out, holy crap, this is how I get out. So I swore I would never let anybody feel the way that I felt.
I bet what would you say? I'm guessing here, I'm projecting. I bet your son, as you I'm speaking from this actually from for myself. Well, I'll speak for myself, and then I'll ask you. My son, I have a son that's 8, and he's slightly on the spectrum, and so up until about 5, he was nonverbal, and I did not handle the situation. It was very sometimes when children are on the spectrum, like they can be like, things can be very transactional. So there's not like a feeling of like they're demanding, telling you things, and you're like, I want my 3-year-old to hug me. You feel like I felt like a failure as a parent. Oh, okay. And then as I started learning, and then I'm like, I got to do better for him. I got to communicate differently with him. I have to figure out, what does he need. I got to figure. He became my biggest case study and taught me so much about myself and how I could help other people.
Yes.
How did that translate for you?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Like, first off, it was diving into the physical stuff. How do we do the physical stuff? But then it's his nervous system is firing all the time. And so when you're in burnout, well, when you have long-term stress, anytime that you're stressed, it doesn't matter what the stress is, your nervous system is like a muscle. So the stronger it gets, the quicker it is to react, that you start getting to where these small things start, your stress system takes over, that you're not staying in a resting system. So you go from 0 to 100 quick, really quick. And for those of us that don't have autism, that don't have a nervous system dysregulation struggle, because, and they do say that with autism that there is a nervous system regulation struggle with them. So with them, they're heightened, like things that would be even small to us, like get that nervous system. So their nervous system becomes so friggin' strong that I had to become so aware with my son of all of the stress triggers: too much sound, too much light, scents, fabric softeners, like even these things on top of like conversations, the way you say things, the way you show love. And then on the flip side, as well as what you said, like with autism, you were saying you wanted a hug. And if your love language is touch. And but I do know of an autistic child that we're close with, where he does love that touch, but it's not always in the same way. He wants you to touch him, but he's not great at reciprocating it back. So if you are, as your love language of being touched, then you can also, as a parent, not feel loved. So it's starting to figure out, okay, how does their brain work? How can I feel the love from them, but how can they? That you have to dive into so many cracks and crevices that you wouldn't with most people that are not so cool as our kids.
Yeah. That's well said. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
So as you how which we kind of elaborate, but I guess if you could even push me out a little bit further. So as you went through this, or even what was that like length of time, but as you went through this journey with your son, how did that continue to provoke aha moments for you in terms of how you're now helping your clients?
Oh man. So I've never thought of this before. It's a great question. So there's just so much with life that it helped me understand as well, that even though my son and I live in the same house, my son and I have the same, so much of the same things. Like I homeschool him now, we have the same routines, but we both still are affected by different stressors. So when working with clients, like even if I'm working with two that are in the same household, the stressors for each of them are going to be different. And that's as well, like I did in 2018, I specialized for a while with first responders. I've now expanded, but with them too, like you would think that all first responders would have the same stressors, but they don't. They have different stages of life with their kids, the different stages, different types of kids, as we just mentioned, what's going on in their relationship as well. And when you are in burnout, you get short fused and things frustrate you more. And you're like, my husband will walk in the room and not know if he smiled at me, if it would be an okay smile or a smile that got him yelled at. Like it was just crazy, right? And so that creates so much stress in the house too, and how that other person reacts. Like there's so many variables when you're starting to dive into what are someone's stressors. You know, there's the boundaries. Yes.
Do you go over, do you cover or talk about, or what if I said, or essentially, what about like unconscious stressors? Is that something you dive into? I believe this is just my projection here, so this isn't, but I believe we even have unconscious stressors. Now, I think most people would say, well, like if I'm stressed, I know I'm stressed. Yeah, I think, I think, oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
No, I'm just listening. Yeah, so absolutely. With unconscious stressors. So I remember a coach of mine once saying, oh, everybody has childhood traumas. And I'm like, no way. Like, I had a great childhood. I'm like, I'm fine, middle class, dad worked Monday to Friday. Mom was home with us for a while and then got a job. She was Monday to Friday. We ate dinners together, all that stuff. And as I started discovering in my business, I keep hitting blocks. I'm working with these coaches. I'm working with these amazing coaches. And I'm doing all the things, like my business, the way to set up, like I can grow and scale so easily now. I've just actually had to take a step back with that a bit because I had to switch to homeschool my son because of his struggles. But like, I think I have all of these systems in place. I have all of these things. Why am I not at the stage that I should be? Right. And I realized that I had created certain thought processes and pathways and different things had affected me as a child, to where I believed I didn't have a voice and I believed I wasn't smart enough. And which I'm realizing my son gets some of his gifted stuff actually from me. I'm like, really? I was put down for that as a child. And I didn't believe that I was worth it. And not believing that you're worth it no matter how much time and effort and everything you're putting in, no matter how much you're working on all of your stress. So, and this is the thing, it's not one piece. Like your gut may be an absolute mess and your nervous system may be firing. And I can go in and teach you the things to start working your resting nervous system so it stops being overpowered by your stress system. But if you are continually telling yourself these things unconsciously and continually, and it's not sabotaging, it's protecting. It's protecting yourself because of things that happen. So that's how I like people to look at it, as it's a reframe. You're not self-sabotaging. How are you protecting yourself?
I love that you said that. I love, 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 love that you said that. I suggest and share that message as well with people. Every negative emotion and limiting belief that we own, you know, some of us on the journey, we know what those are. We know we have them. We know we're uncovering them. Some people, you know, may not. If you're real early in the journey, may say, "Oh, it's not me." But every negative emotion that we have attached to a past memory and every limiting belief that exists for the sole purpose of protecting you, period. No part of self is against self.
No.
So no part of our higher self serves to sabotage us. It will sabotage us boldly and proudly in order to protect us.
Yes.
So sometimes we're afraid to have certain conversations. We are being protected from speaking our truth because when we were younger, we were called a liar or whatever the case may be. So we have fear to protect us so we don't have to get called a liar, and we don't have to. Fear is easier to deal with than that, like, holy crap, I'm alone on this ship. You know, no one believes me.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where too, like when we start looking at this from the protector point of view. So an example of something that happened in our house last week actually was fascinating is, so my son, he's been doing so well with his outbursts, with his anger, with getting mad at us, going from 0 to 100, like phenomenal. I did not communicate to my husband that he was doing a sleep meditation, a sleep breathing before bed. So my husband went in and said, "Are you done?" And he was so into it that he didn't reply. So my husband thought he was sleeping. So he pulled it away while it was still playing. So my son went from 0 to 100. He was protecting himself. That was his protection. It wasn't him being rude or angry at my husband. Now, my husband's protector is, his thing is to fight, or like is to flee. It's to like put that wall up and like block it out. So he walked away. But as he was walking away, he was kind of muttering to himself because he's kind of evolved from just shutting down to being like, "I can't believe my son just yelled at me. Like, you can't believe." And then me in my protector mode, because of my childhood of being yelled at for things, was like, I got mad at my husband and I was like, "You need to give him a break. He has been doing so well." And but once I started thinking about it, I'm like, this was all our protectors.
Yep.
And so the next day I had a chat with my kids about why I yelled at daddy and what happened about all three of us were protecting, how well my son has been doing in supporting his nervous system and getting himself where he doesn't like go from 0 to 100 so fast, and how proud we are of him. But daddy is working on his traumas from his childhood still. He's still like, he's working on that. And so he shut down. And the protector in me was like, this isn't happening to my child. You know, I am not letting my child have this belief that he is not making progress in this. And so it just became this thing. But when we stop and look at, okay, why is somebody yelling? Why is somebody getting angry? Why is somebody shutting down? And when we stop looking at it from this negative of sabotaging or this whole negative thing, and we start looking at it as like, what are you protecting and why? What's happened to you in your life that you now have to have this reaction, like to protect a part in you?
I love it. You know, it usually goes into. I have a friend that is certified and specializes in I think it's called like attachment theory or something like that. I forget the exact modality, but what it boils down to, and a lot of the modalities, as you know, Andy, and for those who are listening, when I say the word modality, when we talk about the holistic healing space, there's a lot of different, just like in the like in our modern medicine, They might prescribe you a slew of medicines. Well, in the holistic space, there's a slew of modalities in which work for different people individually. And then so the attachment theory was going over the idea that, and I'm just like glazing over this. So for those that are listening that are certified in it, forgive me. Essentially that like we have needs that weren't met somewhere along the lines. And so these protection mechanisms came in place to protect us, because without this protection, we don't want to have the feeling of a need that wasn't met. Which is just in a lot, same in alignment with what we're saying, but just the realization of that was cool for me to start thinking like when I feel some kind of way in a negative way, then I can now allow myself, if I have the opportunity, to like physically remove myself from that. Like even if, and I tell people like, oh, I gotta use the bathroom. And then take 2 minutes and think, where did I have a need that wasn't met, so that I had like, what just triggered this? What was the like, just reverse it, right? I was good there. So I said, I have a good idea. And then Tom said, we'll get to that later. And then I got mad. This is hypothetical, by the way, everyone. And then I got mad. So then I have to figure out, Tom said, all he said was, we'll get to that later. Where did I have a need when I felt like I needed to be addressed, but I wasn't, I had a need where I wasn't cared for something, and I go find a memory.
Yeah.
And then obviously, for if you're newer in the journey, get you a coach, get you a mentor, get you a guide. And for myself, what I'm doing with that memory is I'm allowing myself to just heal that memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Absolutely.
ahead, Andy.
Yeah, no. So that's the thing, is that what I do is I work like on sleep and the nervous system and the gut and getting the hormones. And the thing is that with all that I do and where I am at, we work on like a lot of the mindset stuff, setting boundaries, like why are you in labor feeling like you still have to reply to emails,
Yeah.
figuring those things out. But at the same time, these other pieces are important. So as you say, like diving into that, there are different types of therapies. So the one that I was just speaking of is internal family systems and parts therapy. And so I'm not trained in that. I'm actually, their wait list for their training is like huge. They actually have a lottery system because it's so popular. But I'm working on getting myself certified, but I have other people that I can refer to for that. And because that's a piece, if I start seeing somebody keeps making the same wording over again or the same mistakes, it's like there's something to dive into, because I can only make so much progress until they do. And that's where we do often try to get to practitioners who have a great reputation, and they might get stuck with us. And they're like, they can get you to a point and then you revert back again. You're like, why did I revert back? And quite often it's because there's another piece that was missing that keeps setting it off.
Yeah.
So when your stress system keeps kicking in, we have to start figuring out, why does it keep kicking in? And it's so many different things.
Does the name Virginia Satir, does that do anything?
I'm not good with names though.
Okay. No worries. She's an old name and not very known. I know her now just through an avenue. But Virginia Satir was known as, I believe that the term was the mother of family therapy.
Yeah.
She was just exceptional of her time, and like way ahead of her time, like way. And so majority of family therapy is studied off of her studies. Studied off of her studies. She came up with the theory as far as she's accredited with. Maybe someone had the theory before, but she's the one that is made a name for it. She said that if I work with someone, I have to work with their whole family, because the family will undo the work when I get done if I don't.
Yeah. And that's fascinating, because when I've been diving into this internal family systems, we start realizing that once you start working with your internal family system, that your external family, you actually learn how to manage and deal with them. So that's actually one step further from that. And it's by Richard Schwartz. But yeah, it's fascinating. Like but there's still, and this is where I do fall with therapy too, is being in the first responder world, is there's so much onus clout, I don't know, so much given to therapy or sorry, not therapy, to traumas as to why first responders are struggling as much as they are. Mm-hmm. And the thing is when we though only focus on the traumas, then we are missing out on other pieces where, like, if somebody's nervous system is firing so much, and we do see this in autistic kids, in my son as well, he may have PDA, which we're finding out is actually a form of autism, but shows in a different way. It's where they demand avoidance. Anything that's demanded of them, they like freak out, nervous system goes up. But with all this stuff, we're finding that when we're not taking account sleep, when we're not taking into account other things that are pushing their nervous system, then quite often they actually can't make headway in therapies and treatments. So there's your HRV. Are you familiar with your HRV?
No, please elaborate.
Okay. So your HRV is your heart rate variability. So mine's charging. I usually have a ring on as well, which is my Aura ring, and I have my Whoop band on. I have both because I use them with my clients to track their data. We all love that. Data is how I can tell where their stressors are and what's going on with your stressors. So HRV tracks while you're sleeping. The one that I use is the sleeping HRV, and it's the time in between your heartbeats. So when you're stressed, your heart beats fast, that time's going to be slow. When you're relaxed, that should be longer. So when you're sleeping, you shouldn't have as many stressors. That's why we use the sleep one as the marker. And so we use that. And what it does is it tells you your ability to handle stressors. When somebody's HRV is really low, it means their heart's going really fast. They're not like, and we find that when an HRV is super, super low, they can't make headway in therapy. And this has actually been scientifically proven. There have been studies on this, that I have taken first responders that have been struggling with their PTSD treatments, and I've helped them with their gut, their sleep, and their nervous system. So your nervous system, every time it kicks in, it slows down your gut. And sorry, when your gut is slowing down, your serotonin, which is your happy, feel good, I want to be socially engaged with people hormone, which is also the synthetic ingredient in anti-anxiety and antidepressants. 90% of that comes through your gut. So when your nervous system is kicking in, it slows down your gut, you can't get serotonin. And when you can't get that serotonin in as well, you get into that depression, that anxiety as well. So sometimes we found with responders that they came out of a lot of that just from working on gut. And then when we start working on their sleep as well, like sleep deprivation actually leads to, so chronic sleep deprivation is 6 hours or less of sleep a night for 3 months. But sleep deprivation in itself is just one night with 2 hours less of sleep. And it can really change your cognitive ability, your focus, your drive, the way your body heals and repairs, the way you think, the way your mood regulations are, everything, even from one night of 6 hours or less of sleep. Going on. Yeah, right. So with first responders, when they were coming to me, we start working on the sleep and we get the gut going and we get their nervous system regulated. They would tell me, thankfully, they didn't tell me when they started working with me, they would tell me after about 6 months that their suicidal thoughts had gone away. Not all of them, but the majority of them, the ones that did not have a complex PTSD or a PTSD diagnosis. And so those guys, then they were able to start dealing with some other stuff if they chose to go into therapy. But once we started giving as much onus as well to sleep, as onus to your guts and the way your hormones are working, onus to the way that your nervous system is kicking in, as well as that onus to the therapy part, to the mindset part. All of these pieces deserve credit. And so we would take guys as well with complex PTSD that were struggling. And once we got that HRV up, so once their gut was working better, once their nervous system's not firing, their HRV starts going up where they can handle stress more. They can handle so much more stress. But as you're saying as well, I have been going to a therapist for parts therapy. And after we dove into one of my big things that was actually a block in my business, my HRV rose 20 points, which is crazy because 60 is where I'm at now, that I could not get past 40. I'm like, why can't I get past 40? That I had done all the physical to get me up to 40. That once I start diving into the mindset, the trauma part for me, I went up in like 2 days after my therapy. You can just see my HRV rose. And within 3 days, I was 20 points higher, and I've stayed there since. I dealt with that trauma.
It's wild how there's a lot of things. Well, I say a lot. There's a few things. I love what you're talking about, and I use a few different things in life as like biometric feedback devices. Man, like our body, if we pay attention to our biometrics, like the data's there, like you said.
It is. And that's too, like with the Whoop and the Aura, the reason I like them, and for those as entrepreneurs would totally relate to, is that when we're guessing, we can't make as much progress. If we're just guessing on where our leads are coming from, if we're just guessing on like which ads are working or what messaging is getting out to people and resonating, we're not going to make progress. We're just going to keep going. So once I stop guessing with clients, like if they do wear a tracker, I do like the Whoop, hands down, the best, because it actually gives me like a 12 hours of the last 12 hours of where their stressors happened.
Did you say it's called the Loop?
Whoop, WHOOP.
And then out of curiosity, when they have it on, how do you get data? They submit their data to you, or do you have access to their dashboard, or what is that? How does that operate?
So
just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, they can send me screenshots, or if we're on a Zoom call, they can just show me their screen.
Beautiful.
That is so of the Whoop and the Aura Ring, their laptop view, phenomenal. That if I'm on calls with people, they can share their screen and I can walk them around, and it's phenomenal. Whoop,
I think
their laptop screen is horrible. It's their mobile.
I think I'm going to be getting myself a Whoop.
Yeah. You know what?
I didn't know what they were, but as you're talking about, I'm like, this is a no-brainer.
It is. So it tracks your sleep. It also gives you a strain score, which is amazing because strain, as we said, is any strains. And I'm actually getting one for my son too, because I'm going to be able to go and look at his data and see the last 12 hours. What were his stressors? Like, where was he really triggered? Because that's going to help me figure out where I can help him the best with his nervous system. And that's how I deal with clients. But the strain score itself tracks your physical and mental strain. So if you're closing a deal, if you have a meeting, if there's financial struggles in your business, if there's any of these things, if you're dealing with stuff that is going to hit you in your day just as much as the physical. So Whoop tracks your daily strain. And I'll see, like, after meetings or after things, like even after doing a podcast interview, I get excited a bit, and it's like, I love it that good stress, bad stress, that's still a stress.
Yeah.
And all of these stressors add up. When you're in deep burnout, you have the ability to handle less stress. So even good things are going to add up. So this is where you can figure out, okay, should I be working out today or should I not? Can my body handle the extra strain of a workout? And how much can I push in a workout to not overtrain? So you can actually get like optimal performance with this. Like, they're actually designed for athletes and peak performance in people that want to like really perform. You start also understanding more of your triggers. So you start seeing if you eat a certain food and you see that your strain starts going up, you're like, ooh, that food is stressing me. Whereas it may or may not be for people. Same with alcohol. You will see how alcohol affects you. and it's different for each person. What you may find is, oh, wow, this really gets my strain. And alcohol for like, it takes like 2 days for me to get back to where I'm back into the green levels. You have green, yellow, and red, and you go into the red quite often with alcohol. But how long does it take you to get out? After a workout, if you go into a yellow or a red, how long does it take you to get out? If it takes you 1 day, that means you're recovering well. Knowing that alcohol gets you in the red, if you have a deal closing, if you have a major presentation or a project, you have a big creative piece that you need to work the next day, you may know from your stats, I need to either limit it, that this amount of alcohol is okay for me to have the clarity, or this is not. And then, you know, on the other days where you don't have the stuff the next day, okay, this is when I can have it. So it really helps you understand when to do certain things. It's not saying never to do it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love that. I'm a big advocate of seldomly, I intentionally use that word, seldomly using universals. I'm a big advocate of seldomly using universals, meaning always and never, of course. I love what I thought was really powerful, what hit me the most that I want to highlight on. And for everyone listening right now, by the way, real quick, Andi, what is your, if someone wanted to connect with you, what's your website? We're going to have the link in there, but what's the website?
Yeah, so I have two. I have one that is for the general that goes with my podcast, Burnout Expert Podcast, and that's burnoutexpert.ca. That's where you can get my podcast and everything on me. Now, if you are a first responder, that's 911lifestyle.com.
911lifestyle.com. I love it. Something that hit me, and by the way, for the listeners, if you're listening to us on audio, you can go check out the video. We got a YouTube channel at Success After Trauma. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, you can download us on your favorite podcast streaming platform so you can listen to us on the go. Now, what I thought was the coolest so far that you have talked about, Andi, that like hit me, I was like, oh, there's a lot of value in magic there. You spoke about, so some of us, and let's be real, it's probably a lot of people listening, have hired a practitioner, a coach, a mentor, a therapist, and have seen success for a short period of time or not at all, and maybe have went back at it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and haven't, and again, maybe they're feeling like little bumps when they're working with them, but then it's going away, or maybe they're not quite getting them. And I love what you talked about. I know Napoleon Hill talks about it in a book he wrote 100 years ago, but there's older books that even talk about it, The Power of the Gut. And they knew the power of the gut way before we had the information access available to us. Like that was very profound to me the first time I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, or I'm so sorry, it was I think it was Outwitting the Devil, where he talks about the gut, and he relates it to, which I say we all know. Some people may be hearing this for the first time. The gut is like the second mind. It's like the second brain in the body. We just horridly overlook the gut and abuse it, and it still does as best as it can for us. But when they talked about it, he said if your GI tract isn't right, and when we say gut, by the way, for everyone listening, when I say gut, what are they talking about? What part of the gut? I'm talking about when it goes past your lips and right before it comes out the other side. That's what I'm talking about. Everything in between. And so your esophagus, your intestines, your stomach lining, like there's just amazing things going on in the gut. And Napoleon Hill related it to, he said it was equivalent to, he said, if you don't take care of your gut, it's like a city not taking care of their sewer system. And eventually that's going to cause issues in the city. And this book's 100 years old. And again, there's people older than that have written stuff. So that was like, whoa, that's what really started teaching me, like, oh, maybe I should look at gut. That's odd. Like this guy took a chapter to talk about gut. Okay, I say all that to say what I found really powerful in what you said was, and I'm going to share one more metaphor. If we were in a fight or being attacked, what kind of fight? I don't know. We're being attacked. Everyone's free and clear. It's not actually going to happen. If we were in some form of attack and we were to receive some form of injury, be it mild or excessive, and we try to tend to that injury during the attack, we might be able to make a little bit of comfort happen. But while we're making that comfort happen, we're still under attack. So we're still receiving, like it's an up and down. We have to stop the attack before we can heal the wounds. And that was one of the most powerful things that I took away from what you shared today in your abilities and your realizations through your journey, is that you have figured out something that I haven't really heard too many other people talk about. Like, before we heal you, you're under attack right now. There's a reason why you're in burnout, metaphorically speaking, under attack. That was really, really powerful. And that's why I was asking on that link. By the way, if you're listening to the audio, just hop over to the YouTube. We're going to have that link posted. If you've seen this play out in your life before, you might want to reach out. But yeah, Andy, I just wanted to really highlight that. That's what hit me the most while you were talking, was the realization of like, hey, you figured that out. Like, hey, these people are still having this go on. There's something going on outside. Like, yeah, we got to heal this thing, but how do we stop this so that we can heal? And you figured out a way.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. Like, I have a client that I'm currently working with where like her whole system is attacking her. And so I was explaining, which I'm creating a podcast episode on this because of that, was our two healing systems. We have a healing system that is created for when we're in the fight, when we are under attack, when we're in that stress state. We also have a healing system that is for long-term healing, and they're very different. And if we keep switching into our stress nerve, we keep switching into that acute healing. So it's as if you were like stabbed, or like you got shot in the arm, and you know how you don't bleed out right away, but it's after somebody calms down that they bleed out, because those are your two systems. The one system is actually restricting your blood. It's restricting your blood. It's keeping it in there. It's not letting everything flow through your body. It's not letting all the healing properties come through. It's in this acute phase. And when we're in the other phase, in our resting phase, that's where all of the healing properties come in. That's where we have our lymphatic system that cleans all the gunk out and the toxins and detoxes your body and all that stuff. That you can't even detox your body from just everyday toxins that are out there if you're living and sleeping in your stress state. And just for people, if you're wondering, hey, am I sleeping in my stress state? Do you snore? Do you have dry mouth? Do you find that you're mouth breathing? If you are, that means that you are sleeping in your stress nerve. That means your stress nerve is so strong, it is kicking in while you're sleeping, which is also kicking in. It's not kicking in your healing inflammatory system to be able to heal and repair everything as well.
That's powerful. I love that just out of curiosity, where did you track or realize? So not only did you have this realization and start helping people with this, like, holy crap. And to me, it gets so, I don't, to me, it's so profound because I haven't even really, this is fairly new to me. Yeah. So that's like, everyone's dealing with the bullet hole, but no one's getting the attacker to, stop. So that's powerful. Where did you, just out of curiosity, so you figured this out and you're like, hey, we got to get gut, we got to get sleep. Okay. Where did you connect the Whoop? Like, when did that come in that you're like, hey, we got to stop guessing here. I need actual data from them. Like, what was that aha moment?
Yeah. So I had an Oura Ring I've had it for 4 years now. And it's been good. Like, I've loved it for myself. And it was actually just chatting with a client where we were chatting with them. It is funny because I did wear one for quite a few years before. I was chatting with a client one day. They saw me with it on. Well, we were in a call and they had one. I'm like, oh, let me dive into your data. Can we see? Can you share your screen? And then we made like huge progress. And I'm like, crap, why was I not doing this years ago? And the reason that I brought in the Whoop is because the Oura Ring is a titanium ring. And I only learned actually a few weeks ago that it is heat sensitive. It's okay with the heat. So fire can wear it, but I didn't think fire can, but for police, because working with responders, a titanium ring is not really, it's more of a weapon than
Ring
anything at
emulsion, yeah.
times, and it can injure them. So I tried the Whoop, not thinking anything. And I thought, okay, after 3 or 4 months, I'll give it to my husband. And I have not taken it off. And they keep adding new features. I will say to anybody that it is overwhelming when you first get onto the app, because of how much data it collects, that I would honestly just stick with the sleep score, strain score, and your recovery scores.
Let
Just
me write that down, because I'm getting one of these. Sleep score. You're saying, so for myself specifically. So
just
sleep, strain, and what was the other one?
yeah, recovery.
Recovery.
Hold
Okay.
up.
Yeah, I'm getting one of these for myself. No question to ask.
Yeah, they're absolutely amazing. I have a link on my site that gives you anybody who has one, it gives somebody like a free month or something. So
Beautiful. Yeah, if you want to
I'm just
link it.
getting over the flu, so you can actually see I'm in the red, but you can see sleep.
Yep.
So it's at the top. So you would want just to pop into those, but there's so much data in here. So yeah, for example, I've been sick. I didn't tell you that, but I've had the flu.
Aw.
So I'm just at the tail end, but see all of those spikes, that's where like I had fevers and I was like stressed and tossing and turning in my night. So these are all stressors. I know right now it's because of the flu, but we can actually track, like it'll look like that in the day too. So it will actually show me all of those bumps in the day, which I've had somebody who, I have a group in group actually for burnout. And I have somebody, she was like, it's driving. My thing pops up every time I'm driving. And that's where, okay, is it that you're anxious driving? Why are you anxious driving? Is it not trusting other people? Were you in a car accident at one point and do we need to deal with that trauma? Like, where is it? What is it about being in that car that is stressing you out so much? Is it the nervous system's kicking in? Do we just need to teach that to not do it? So we're like, we can work on it in so many different ways, but seeing all of those markers is like phenomenal. But like, it'll break down like how much sleep you need, how much you should get, like everything. And so if you work out, you should be in the yellow the next day because
Okay.
your body did take a hit, but do you get back in the green the day after?
Okay.
If you don't, then you didn't recover well enough. Because we think of stress like riding a horse. You're pulling the reins and relaxing them, pulling and relaxing. You're never actually just letting the horse go and do its thing, or you go off course. So with stress, you need to have stressors and you need to have relax. It's the both. So the working out is technically, when you're not in burnout, working out is supposed to stress your system to allow you to be able to handle more stressors. So if you stress your system in a tough workout, the next day you go into the yellow, but the next day in the green, then you stress your system enough that it recovered stronger. But if you continue in the yellows and you can't get out of the yellows, then your system's not recovering enough, and you're actually pulling reins too hard.
And let me also suggest, I'm just projecting here, but let me also suggest, if you're staying in the yellow too long, I'm going to suggest, with what I just learned, it's evidence that you're under attack.
Yeah, and you're in burnout. And if you're getting
in burnout
reds a lot too, you're like, oh crap, you're probably, you're even like in deep burnout. And so when I'm looking at people, like I'll get people, so an average-ish for our, like, I'm saying our age, I don't know your age, but so an average-ish for like 40s, 50s is 60. And I get responders in where like 20 is a good day for an HRV.
That's rough. That's rough.
You want to be watching that HRV, right?
Yeah, 20 is rough.
Right. And that's where, they can't handle any stressors. They can't, which is why you're short, like during the day, or short with your family and stuff. So if you do get tracking this and you're like, oh, after certain days, or even I had a client that traveled a lot, and we found his travel schedule would drop his HRV a lot depending on when he traveled, that he started going early mornings, which did mean he missed his kids in the morning, which was one of his goals and values. But it meant that when he came back, his HRV was higher, so he was calmer and more engaged with his family, with his kids. Whereas before, his HRV was lower and he was short with them, disengaged with them, didn't really want to be with them. So we're like, Okay, we're looking at your priority list of your family, and being there with your kids is your priority, not seeing them in the morning, but then being able to be present with them when you get back from your trip is going to give you that better quality time with your kids. And he explained it
Mhm.
to them too, and they understood it because they saw him being short, and they realized when he traveled in the mornings, he wasn't short with them.
That is beautiful.
Mhm.
I love everything you shared. This has been a great episode. I love all my episodes. This one's just been really, really cool for me. I've got to learn a few things. I'm gonna order the Whoop. Let's connect. I'll grab that link from you. I always have, Andy, I always have my guests. I always ask them to share final thoughts, and then I'll share with them um, who essentially who I'm called to. I'm going to ask you to give a message to, and then so for today, if you would share just final thoughts message to that person that has they have desire. This message is for that entrepreneur that has desire to do more. So much so, and we're talking about, like, this would be an entrepreneur that is they're a producing entrepreneur. So we're not talking about someone stressed. They haven't really, like, getting your business off the ground is a stressor, but that's a business coach. Okay, we're talking about someone business is off the ground, it's functioning, and they have a desire to do better. So much so that they have hired coaches in the past, and then they haven't realized, they just aren't aware that they haven't stopped the attack yet to be able to start the healing. Can you share a final message to that person that's listening today, that's in that space?
Yeah. So if you have been trying all the things to get forward and there is something that's always getting you stuck, it's going to have to come from you as to where you're stuck, in a sense. Like, what I mean by come from you is, what is getting somebody else stuck is not necessarily what's getting you stuck.
Mm,
So the first thing to do would be to start working on your nervous system to stop shifting you into that stressed state as often. And how you start doing that is by breathing through your nose. So
mm,
anytime you find you're stressed, we there's all different kinds of breathing out there, and not saying any of them are, like, there's so many that are just
mm,
absolutely amazing. We need to start with the base foundations.
mm,
Anytime you figure that you are breathing through your mouth, switch to your nose.
mm,
When you are in a stressed state and you realize you're in a stressed state, think of a square and go inhale, pause, exhale, pause. I don't care the numbers. You will get to more advanced stuff where you can work on numbers and work on deeper things. Work on this foundation. If you do that through your nose, what that's going to do is start training your resting system, your resting nerve. It's going to shift you out of the stress nerve into the resting nerve. And if we think of this like a gym, the more reps, the stronger that resting nerve will get. So once we shift you out of that nerve into the resting nerve, then we can start seeing what are the actual stressors around here, and we
I
can
love it.
dive in.
That's exceptional. Andy, I appreciate you being on here today. And for everyone listening, if you're called to connect with Andy, if you're listening to the audio, just go ahead and hop on over to YouTube. It's Success After Trauma is the channel. We're going to have Andy's links posted below. If you are a first responder, use that 911 link. If Andy also works with, she's specialized, hyper specialized in first responders, and her business has since expanded out, as she has had other entrepreneurs. Usually, again, these are people with producing businesses, driven, have a desire, ambitious. She has expanded out. If you are in that position, and so not first responder, you may consider using that other link to connect with Andy. Um, I appreciate Andy again. Appreciate having you on here. Everyone, all our guests, thank you so much. Make sure you catch us next week. And until then, be great. It's already in you.